welcome to this short tutorial and walkthrough about creating this customized plotly dashboard for visualizing your VectorBT portfolio simulation and strategy visualization. So the code that you need for this tutorial is basically in this repo. The link will be in the description. You can basically clone it. Now you need to generate the data sets, the pickle files, to run this script. So you can do so by following this tutorial mentioned in this link. But if you want a shorter, quick rundown of the instructions, you can just basically follow this readme md.md file inside this data folder. Now I'll just give a quick walkthrough of the directory structure we have. So once you have cloned and extracted to your local machine, so you'll basically see these things inside the folder. First is the main script for the dashboard, which we will execute soon. The other is the data folder, which will contain all the pickle files that you would have generated from that multi-asset portfolio simulation tutorial. And then the assets folder basically contain your CSS files, the style sheets, and the fonts, and the logo images for the banner, the header of the website. So to run the script, you basically navigate in your terminal shell to the folder where you have extracted this, and then just run the Python script. Now this will start a dash server which will run on this local host link. You can basically copy that link and then open the same here. Now as you can see in this dashboard, we have two tabs, one for the portfolio simulation and the other for the strategy visualization. So I'll start with the strategy visualizer, and parallelly I'll try to give you a walkthrough of the code so that you understand how the code relates to what the elements you see in the dashboard. So here you just have a drop down list to select different symbols. You have another drop down to select the chart time frame between 15 minutes and 4 hours, because that's what we used for the strategy. And finally you have like a traditional date picker that you would all be familiar with to change the range of the x-axis basically. And of course you also have the plotly interactive chart elements for you to zoom, pan, and do all that nice stuff that you can do in plotly. Now the other element is basically this RSI indicator, which is created as a stacked subplot below this main OHLCV plot. And again you have a drop down for the RSI where you can select the RSI time period between 15 minutes and 4 hours, and so on. Now I want to highlight the importance of having this customized dashboard, right? If you go to TradingView, I have basically created the same setup, like a Bollinger Band on the price chart, and then RSI with the Bollinger Bands as an indicator, stacked indicator below the main chart. Now if you go and change this to 4 hours time frame here, you will see the RSI will also change to 4 hours. And then of course you know that TradingView has a limitation on the number of indicators you can add, even on the Pro Plus account, which is just 5. So now this makes it clear, right, why you would want something like this. Now here in our case, our strategy has two confluences. The first confluence is the price hitting the upper or lower Bollinger Band on the price chart, and then the second confluence is the 15-minute RSI hitting its respective upper or lower Bollinger Band. So here you can basically have the fine-grained visualization for you to exactly inspect and validate whether the rules of the strategy that you have coded is behaving in the manner that you expect or intended as you originally programmed it for, right? So that's basically a walkthrough of this strategy visualization. I'll just give you a quick walkthrough of the code for the same. So here in this region, basically I load all the data for this strategy visualization. We have the price, the indicators, and the entries and exits. This is a sub region where I load the different portfolio simulation pickle files. I'll talk about this later when we see the portfolio visualization tab. And then once you load the pickle files, you extract them into their respective variables. Here this is the global settings for your VectorBT plots. This is your dash global variables. I'll just do this parallelly here. So this is basically the symbols drop down here, and then this time period tabs 2 is basically your chart time frame drop down list, and then your date picker is somewhere over here, and then basically this build banner is a generative function that just builds a header for the site here that you see with the logo. And then this build tabs is kind of like a switching function to handle the switching operation between the two tabs, tab 1 and tab 2, the portfolio simulation and the strategy visualization tab. So this build tab 1 is basically like a template function where you have all these HTML elements where you would go and populate the data or the figure chart into this respective zones, right? So it's like allocating areas for where you want to place the different plots. Now, pertaining to the strategy session, we talk about this build tab 2. So this is the template function to populate all the elements, the first indicator, the second indicator, the drop down list, and so on. That's all you see. And for those familiar with dash, dash works on the principle of having this callback functions. So this basically is the callback for the second tab. So based on the symbol, the date range and the start and end date and the chart time frame that you pick, you can generate the main chart accordingly using this callback function. And likewise we also have an RSI indicator function to generate the RSI, and then there is a small callback function that calls this RSI indicator like a wrapper function and then populates based on the time frame that you select for the RSI time period. It will create the RSI here accordingly. So that's basically it. And finally you have this main callback which will render the entire site for the respective tabs here. If you ended up selecting tab 2, it will call this build a tab 2 function. So that's basically it for this strategy visualization. Next we will see about this portfolio simulation tab. I'll just start with the code as it loads. So there are three different types of portfolio simulation which I have generated. I mean the three different pickle files. So first is, as I explained, it's starts from here if you follow this tutorial. So here we do like a discrete asset wise simulation. Like you have 8 symbols in the portfolio, you will see the simulation results for each symbol separately. That's basically it. And then the pickle file is saved as pfsim discrete just for you to follow, and then we compute the stats data frame and so on. The second different type of simulation is treating the entire basket of assets as one single unified portfolio simulation. So you will not see portfolio simulation results for each symbol, but rather just for the entire portfolio as a single entity. That's basically it. And then the third different simulation is basically grouping the symbols. Like you have 8 symbols in your portfolio. You basically here in this case I have basically grouped them into two groups. So one with having USD inside the currency pair and the symbol name for the currency pair, and the other where USD is not present. So then you will see the simulation results for the two groups separately. So that's just the context. Now going here, of course these drop down selections are the same concept. You can select the resampling period to see these orders and returns basically. So on the 1D chart it basically loads fast, but 15-minute is or was the baseline frequency for the strategy. If you select it, it will be quite slow. So that's why it's listed as 1D by default. And after waiting for that to load. Okay. So then you have more stacked plots. So first is basically your portfolio dot plot, which will give you this orders, trade, P&L, cumulative returns. Then I stack this drawdowns plot and then this underwater plot, and finally you can see like the entire simulation results for all the symbols in this nice portfolio, this markdown table, and you can use this horizontal scrolling for that. Okay, so that's the first type of portfolio simulation. Now if we go back to the code, and I'll also just do a quick walkthrough. So if you remember, this was the region where I am loading the three different portfolio simulation pickle files, and then this is the code that renders this is pertaining to this build tab 1, and then the build tab 1 also has its relevant callback based on the symbol on the resampling period you select. It will send appropriate data to populate this build tab 1 template function. That's basically it. So we have just seen how to run the discrete simulation for various symbols, right? Now if I want to run it for the unified portfolio, I basically just comment out that and uncomment this. Now this should regenerate this plot here, and now you will just see instead of various symbols, you will just see two groups, one called USD pairs and other is called non-USD pairs, and you will see like the plots changing for that. And it's important to note that VectorBT plotting functions do not support plotting the orders plot and the trade P&L plot when you have grouped your portfolio simulations, or even when you're running the entire portfolio as a single unified simulation. So for both those cases, you will not see the orders and the P&L that you saw earlier. But other than that, rest of the thing is the same. You will see this simulation statistics at the end as a nice table, and so on. Lastly, we'll just see how to do this grouped simulation, I mean the single unified simulation. So again, I'm commenting out the previous section of the code, and then uncommenting this code where we load this single unified simulation pickle file, and this will again regenerate this plot here. So as before, I mean there is no need for a drop down, so because it's just like one single group. So you just see the three plots like you saw for the group simulation, and instead of two groups or two columns, you will just see the simulation statistics for just the whole portfolio as such. So that's basically it for this demo. I hope you enjoyed this. So I really encourage feedback and contributions, so feel free to fork this and then try adding more indicators, or if you want to contribute to the VectorBT community, create a pull request, and we can merge the code into this repo so that all of us in the community can benefit. So thank you for your time and attention, and I wish you a very nice day and happy backtesting. Take care.